Welcome back, audience. Hope you're doing good, as always. Keeping it real, as always. Having a bit of tea. And today, I want to talk about a little bit maybe unusual subject, but nevertheless worthy to investigate. And that is, what is necromancy? Right? So we have all these old words that stem from occult. And yes, of course, there is this type of delusional and belief system understanding of what they mean, but they also point to something that is real. And the question I had is this, because it was my direct experience. Calibrating consciousness. First observation, depending on the space-time you're in, it matters that the challenge, the alchemical challenge that you may feel, that numbness that comes along, or some pain, or like, you can always be vigilant of what's going on there at that deeper level of your consciousness, that incoherence before it turns into a thought and emotion and so on and so on. And so when you are vigilant like that, you're going to start noticing things, you're going to start noticing patterns. And I go, like I said before in previous videos, I only go by this. You may say, like, well, this has already been written and already been talked about, discussed. This is something, it's not something new. It doesn't matter. It's been written. That's just a knowledge. That's just in a memory information. That is not personal discovery. So to me, it doesn't matter at all. I scrapped everything like that. Everything. So I'm going directly from the scratch to make sure that I don't slip into the belief system, and this is something that is actually tangibly, energetically, metaphysically is true. As a scientist, looking at a meta science, if you will, a metaphysics. As a physicist looking at the laws of physics, there are laws of metaphysics. You see, there are definitely laws of metaphysics, but you can't investigate them. The physics will give you all the clues you need, actually, but you're still going to have like that direct experience to understand of what that is. Like, what's the state of a atom and how it relates to state of consciousness within yourself, right? The flux of energies within the atom and the states in the atom or in the molecule and whatever, and how that relates to your own consciousness. Because in a way, you are kind of an atom. Adam, by the way, that's what it is. Adam and Eve is atom, and Eve is that type of toroidal energy flow that creates that Eve, right? That butt. This is why the butt, the boobs, and that everything that just has that type of toroidal, shape is super sexy and attractive to a masculine. So, now, so the fact is, and I hope that you, of course, like if you're listening to me, and like I said, I don't have a lot of followers because I kind of chase the people who are not really serious about that away. Not that I intend to do that. It just happens because I am, at least in my domain, like I have no problems, because sometimes I do have a problem with other people living in the belief system, and I kind of want to get in and it's kind of like, slap them up a little bit and say, like, you fucking shit up. But I can't really, it's not my jurisdiction. I can only focus on my domain and make sure that my domain is not really like my domain. It's just the domain of the coherence and other people who are, interested in living life like this and putting everything in its right place. There is a way to do this. Not denying anything in life, but putting everything in the right place. That's, I think, really, like, that's the whole point of this life. It's not just like transcend and and it is like how do we live um, coherently and correctly on all and full spectrum of consciousness. One second. Sorry about that. Little pause for the good cause. Right? So going back to time space. Time space includes location in one particular time. Of course, includes the ambient, the people around it, everything. Right? There's one. So, and depending on that, there is this ambient energy that is there. Like sometimes people say the veil is thinner over here or whatnot, right? So I've also noticed that you can go to one particular place, if you visit regularly, and there's going to be a lot of alchemical challenges in the place. There's a lot to calibrate. You come in that place and it's just like some pain, just like whoosh, starts, and you're like, whoa. And then that's that, beginning of the calibration, and you do your thing to make that energy coherent in that space again. For whatever reason, there is like at this point, it doesn't matter to me the reasons and all that stuff. I'm just working with the incoherence directly, and honestly, that's the best approach. Because when you go into this psychological reasons, it's like you lose, and it's just it's no one ever gain anything from it. Anyway, the reason I'm saying is this, not to get into the mind when you're calibrating the energies, because the mind is like, oh, why is it so like, oh, is it because of this and this past thing and this trauma, and is, like the mind is looking for the reasons, and while it's doing it, you are not calibrating the energy, you are making it worse, you are reinforcing it. This is why I don't look about the reasons. It doesn't matter. Like any person, like all these reasons are boring. They're all the same, to me at least. If I meet a person or if I do one-on-one session, I don't really, at that particular point, don't care about like their past. I just care about the incoherence in their system that's causing all these other things, because incoherence is the first thing that actually caused all of these traumatic events. The incoherence was there first. You see, like this is why, for example, you may have like incoherence somewhere, for example, in your body, and then you end up being injured in that location, or the inflammation starts happening there, or cancer develops. That's because the incoherence was there first. So I only work with the incoherence of the energy, and the rest of it is not my concern. Okay? I'm not here to pacify anybody, especially if the person is, trusting me to show them the permanent way out and the faculty of consciousness that they could actually use that works. I'm not going to go into their belief system and reinforce it again and and pacify that belief system. And I'm against this, because I can see that it's not helping people. Now, what do I mean by that? Before I go into necromancy, like I'm just gonna swoop around it a little bit. Those patterns, for example, with people making money from helping somebody psychologically, right? You see, this is like a fad. You see people, they start like doing tarot readings, then they drop the tarot readings, and then they realize, what works better? It's just like blow smoke at people's ass, basically. Just say that like, hey, you're the chosen one. Oh, you're so amazing, you know what I mean? What a bullshit is that? It's a complete and utter nonsense. It is not helping anybody. You the person that you were talking to, you don't know that person. There's no actual genuine empathy that stems from, because you're not with that person. You know, You you see what I'm trying to say? Like, I'm just picking on this particular example, this particular pattern that is there. It's just not the only one. There's a lot more. But there's this process of like, hey, I'm going to pacify your beliefs. They're dying. You see what I'm trying to say? These beliefs are dying. They cannot be sustained anymore because the coherence is changing on the planetary level. But there's this habit of people who's trying to resuscitate something that is dead. And that brings me to the necromancy. It is resuscitation, something that is already dead. It is resuscitation of the past. Past meaning not linear past, but the past meaning fragmentation, the distortion. You see what I'm trying to say? So when everything is happening towards the coherence, and that creates this type of need for people to learn how to calibrate their energy and stop doing all of this like superficial things that they need. Oh, you can manifest anything. So what that you can manifest anything? How about being happy? How about being happy? Huh? Not because you got the new car, because that's just pleasure. That's not joy. How about you genuinely having a soul? How about that? So you see, the people always, I shouldn't say always, but, and I shouldn't say I mean, a lot of people that I see, that may not be even majority, but a lot of people that I see, because they're more visible. They, at least this type of pattern that I can see that is wrong. They're latching on and say like, oh, manifest something, and then they don't ask like, why do you want this car, right? Do you really like that type of car? Is if nobody would see you driving that car, would you be enjoying that car? And just because the way it feels and something means to you, is this why? Or you just want to buy that car because to get some cred in street cred or whatever, right? No, this is not the way. And you may say, well, like some people need to kind of go on that. No, it's done. This is done. This is so outdated. So not the way right now, because we're in a certain period of time. Like, before 2012, you can say that like, well, some of it's okay. We're not going that way. We're not, there's no kindergarten anymore, right? It's like a university level. You can't just mess around like this anymore. You cannot, like, not because I'm saying so, I'm saying that this, because of the forces that are involved right now in this particular time space experience that we're going through, is not conducive to this thing. You are going to create more incoherence within yourself, more unhappy because of this. So it's like this old momentum of just, what's considered to be, cool and whatever, what's value. It's just like a momentum, but it's dying. But some people still cling on this, and they think that no, you can have a car that you really enjoy, and you still have a joy, happiness, and the car. So the joy is the price. Excuse me. The alchemy is the price that you pay for the joy that you receive, and with that joy, then you can have a car that is meaningful to you. I'm just giving an example, okay? So no, we're done with this thing. It's so outdated, and we're done with this. Okay, enough is enough, and I don't understand why thousands of people are still latching on to this. I know that every single person that do it, they feel deep inside some fatigue about this. They know the toxicity of it. I know that they feel bad after this little pleasurable release that these people are like, pacify your brain for a little bit. It is toxic. You see? So all these helpers out there who just like, hey, I'm just going to help her. But they're not actually teaching you how to calibrate your own consciousness, and they go straight into this like superficial stuff and whatnot, or belief system based. It's toxic. You understand? That's what makes you feel bad. That's what resuscitates something that's already dead. And so when you participate in that, you participate in a sort of slight level of necromancy. Because when somebody comes in and reinforces that belief in you, right, that you're the chosen one, that you're worthy, which is just a belief. You don't need to have a belief. You see what I'm trying to say? And the reason you latch onto this belief is like, well, otherwise I feel unworthy unless I really believe it, and I really need some other people to keep on telling me that this is the case. Otherwise, I'm unworthy. You see? But if you really look at the reason, the feeling of why do you even seek this type of pacification, you'll find with sufficient attention, as much as it needs, because if you neglect it, it may need a lot of attention. If you give it enough attention, it disappears. And then the self-worth is not because of the belief. Self-worth is because how fucking good you feel. You feel like a gazillion bucks. It's like you don't give a shit what anybody thinks about you. Genuinely, not because you created the belief that just, I don't give a shit whatever mother thinks about me, I don't care, but you really do. No, this is not it. You're out of that game. You see. And of course the game keep on trying to pull you back in. So, and everything that I say, I apply to myself as well. I also, don't think that I don't feel the same type of gravity to these dysfunctional things. I just recognize them and I watch myself going into this, and I see what kind of process is going on. I can see that, oh, this is toxic. Yeah, this girl looks good, but the very principle of whatever she's doing here on this video is toxicity. It is this false empathy. It's this, it's toxic. I have nothing to do with this person. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, and I also don't learn anything. It's just that they're blowing smoke in your ass, or they are playing with your emotions by saying that, like, oh, it's, there's something's about to happen, but it's not quite, and so then they freaking reignite that freaking trauma, and then you're like, oh yeah, it is true for me, yeah, the third party is involved, yeah, it's like it's just freaking torturing people like that with that cute little face. I'm just being real with you, okay? Because look, at this time, the gloves are off. The gloves are off. And they can make their money out of these gullible people. Look, at the same time, I'm not negating this genuine care when, for example, you're going through the tough time and, you're trying to calibrate the energy, but it's just, that's not what you need at the moment. You need to talk to somebody and hang out with somebody and just have this more social type of experience with somebody can listen and you can listen to them, totally fine. But there's a genuinity there involved. A person is actually listening to you and actually care for you, and then they may say some encouraging word and everything. That's real. Nothing done on look at this digital world and stuff like that. This is your life, you see. This is totally legit and fine when it's done like this, because there's a direct connection, direct feedback. You can see that the person really means it. There might be some emotional release that's happening like there, and boom, and maybe the whole reason was to connect with another human being and to, relate and empathize with that particular process that you're going through, and perhaps they went through, and perhaps they're going through the same thing. You see what I'm trying to say? To it's genuine, it's real. And as soon as there are genuine, real moments in the show business, but then they see like, oh, that got the reaction, so then the others just jump in and say like, well, then they overdo it. It's like, nah, like, no. It's not, you're going toxic again, because now you are venting too much to too many people, and you're just getting off on this fact, and it's not, you're not letting that shit go, but you're using it. You shouldn't try to say there's that toxic version of that. And that is what resuscitates the wounds that you already may have gone past. This is very important what I'm saying. You understand? Like, because there are these distortions that we all start with, like these puzzles, right? And we work and we put them back together. But there's certain things in life as you go, and if you are not discerning enough, and you can kind of fall asleep and go into this, lullabying pleasure. And as soon as you get off on that pleasure, the distortion appears. You see what I'm trying to say? When that pleasure starts invading your soul, your heart, the distortion appears again. You may have worked really hard to fuse it together and put it into a whole so you have the peaceful bliss. And now it's been ripped apart again. Okay? So that can happen like on these little videos that you watch for the pacification or any kind of content for the pacification. See what I'm trying to say? Don't ever watch this. And I know it's a kind of a strong statement, but that's what I do in my life. Like, no crap. Don't consume crap. There's enough of this to calibrate as it is in the ambient. Not only that you shouldn't be consuming crap, that is supposed to be creating some sort of boundaries in your domain that doesn't seep in at all. I'm considering genuinely, maybe even leaving YouTube. If YouTube is not going to get their ass together, because they have to revamp it just like the X was revamped or Twitter was revamped into X. Something like that has to happen. But so far with YouTube revamps, where I'm blocking all the ads and selecting very carefully of what I watch and guarding my own attention, and as soon as I see this, like, okay, why am I going to watch this video? Okay, I'm just going to drain my energy and I'm going to feel bad after. So even though I may feel good for that moment, right? So it's like toxic. It's like smoking too much weed. It becomes toxic. So no. And then I choose the sobriety over toxicity. But that brings me to the deep bringing of that distortion. And when people say like crucifixion and resurrection, right? Like the crucifixion is this calibration that you do with your consciousness when you're alchemizing the energy. That's the crucifixion part. And then when that energy starts flowing and starts now reflecting it in that first soul mirror in these beautiful colors and these patterns, these kaleidoscopic patterns, there's the most wonderful feeling in the world. That rainbow, sometimes we call it rainbow body, but it's just like, the energy that is, it's your soul dancing, singing, being in a state of music. That's resurrection. You're being reborn. And that process, crucifixion, resurrection, is continuous. And it just has to keep on happening. This is the first order of business. However, there are natural forces where there's a natural level of what you call darkness, or that separation that is on this planet, that you end up always in the process of dying and being reborn, dying and being reborn on that energy level. The pattern that comes in, that's all pattern, dying and rebirthing that pattern. And so that there's that natural level that happens. But then there's artificially boosted, and that is usually done through these types of necromantic rituals, or if you will, those dark ritualistic magic. See what I'm trying to say? And so that brings me to these points on planet where sort of like nodes, and there's already obviously there's an evidence of there's different electromagnetic activity in these areas. And so then you have this like Aztec area or Maya area, right? Egypt, and many parts of the world that where they were building pyramids and had civilizations. Except for the last 2,000 years, they were not governing through the coherence. They were governing through the incoherence. They were doing it by increasing more fear. And so this way, if there's a lot more fear, then you can be more dominant over other people. And so you become a tyrannical father, not a benevolent father. And so for the last 2,000 years, okay, I just think about this for 1 second. Like I'm just being real. It's a fact. If you don't believe me, look it up. For the last 2,000 years, in this place where I am right now, there's been a sacrificial magic being done. I don't know that they're selling you this like, oh, Maya this, and Mayan calendar, and Mayan this and this like that. But what's really going on is some dark shit for the last 2,000 years. And only the original Maya is not known to be, but that was like 3,000, I believe it was like from 4,000 years ago to 2,000 years ago. That was the original Maya civilization where like incredibly advanced, non sort of like a terrestrial capacity and technology. These are the parts of the rocks that's been built and kind of seemingly fused together where you cannot even put the rays in between. And these are large blocks of stone seemingly fused together, that type of technology from that type of day. Back then, same thing with pyramids, they did do it right, and they did create this coherence field, they were like these people or extraterrestrials. Like I don't know that, but based on how the pyramids were built, and the pyramids were used as an amplification of that orgone energy that a person is generating by alchemizing the energies. And so the alchemists of the time were doing this work to create this ambient that is peaceful and happy, and that created a cohesion in the society. But for some reason they left, and for the last 2,000 years there were no people doing this work, and they went into the dark magic, the dark way. Okay, and this is not an occult thing, because the incoherence that I'm talking about, that I spent so much time, last 5 years here in the jungle, and I've encountered all sorts of things, because here in the jungle I can tap into everything and I know exactly. So for example, yesterday there was some astrological date and they do these freaking rituals. And at first I was like, oh, it's nice, they do these like modern Maya rituals and things like that. And I went to one of those, and it was the most horrific feeling ever. I left. I was like, why? It was such a horrible feeling. At first I didn't put two and two together. But later I realized that their traditions, they're just repeating the same thing that they did before. Perhaps, they may not do like this sacrificial magic like officially, because they're not stupid, but I question, where is this intense incoherence arising for some reason on these specific dates when they're known to do these rituals? So this is the data point that I'm using, and not the books, not the things that I'm just saying, like the coherence in the area, in a specific location, changes. You understand? No reason whatsoever. Like I said, like there's a natural flow. But when in one day I can be in this peaceful bliss and everything is amazing and beautiful. And then suddenly there's this energy that starts coming in, and my heart starts like, and it's like a darkness is freaking being released in the air, That's the experience that's happening. Where, I'm asking, like I said, there's gradual, totally fine, totally legit. It's fine. This is like artificially released in this moment, and it's ritualistic. That's my suspicion, just because I observed these things happening on these particular astrological dates when they're known to do these rituals. Okay? I've noticed that before. I did not know why it's so difficult. Why do I have to work so hard to make these energies into the coherence again? And how horrible they feel. What kind of thoughts stem from these energies? It's just pure murder, perversion, sick. It's just like the darkest shit that you can imagine. That's the energy that's being released. And so no wonder that here in Mexico, there was so much of the cartel crime, the homicides, and even like the energy within people is very murderous. It's like I'm being real. You say, like, people come in and it's like, well, this is just a paradise, right? They're being used as a cattle to drain the money and the energy out of them. And I really mean the money and the energy. All these little events here that take place by these shamans, these are dark shamans. These are not real. And people come in and they give you their energy, and they leave feeling worse than they came. This is what's been happening here. Okay? And it's whether you come in for the spiritual healing, but you have your soul taken away, because if you don't have enough protection and you don't understand how to calibrate the energies, that's what you'll see. But that has changed. For the last 5 years, there was a 50% drop there's reported drop in homicides in Mexico, and severely shrinking of the cartel activity. And you say, well, that's because, the Trump has been unleashing his CIA dogs and all that stuff. Yes, but that is the consequences of the change of the energy. Like, at first I was asking, why the fuck, did I come here? Like, really makes no sense. Like, trust me, I had life, made it, just fucking made it, you see what I'm trying to say? And I just left everything behind to come here in the jungle. Makes no freaking sense. Makes no logical sense. And sometimes when I kind of wake up and I realize, what the fuck? I just sacrificed my personal life for this thing. Now, I'm not complaining. This, what I'm learning and what I'm going through, opening my eyes to the real thing that's going on. No naivete no more. Like, going to the core of the darkness, the reason of why there's so much dysfunction in the world. The reason that's why these people are seemingly like reptilian level of freaking intelligence, running the countries and structuring systems that are built to cope with fear, while at the same time they know full well that they're generating that fear, right? I'm not saying anything new, but I'm saying what actually works: internal alchemy, external discipline. And if you're watching my videos, or at least most of you don't have a choice either. You wake up in the morning and these energies like there, and now you have to figure out, and you're watching me learning how to calibrate these energies, because it's affecting you. Now, maybe not not, I don't know how many of you are like that, but I know that if you're still watching my videos, is that you are going through the same. things and same changes. But this is no longer this belief system. This is not new age bullshit and things like that, right? They have a lot of that information that may relate to be true, but everything is just that's turned into belief system is corrupted. This is real life. You live these things. You go through these things. So, where are we at? So, the same things happening like in Afghanistan, in Iraq, Egypt, here like in Yucatan, Mexico, and the Aztec side as well. And the only way to counteract that is to actually face all of these energies, and alchemize them. It works. I mean, you can say, well, it's a coincidence, but for the last 5 years, it's been dropping and dropping and dropping. The vice tourism that this place has been known, right? Like, spring break, let's go to Cancun, and and just like a girls trip, and you're just like smashing all these pirates over here, these perverted pirates. You know what I'm trying to say? So that's just one. All these adult hotels and all of that vice tourism, in which what eventually like what Tulum ended up, just most ridiculous feeling. Like, I don't know. Now it's changing, but because there's no more this vice tourism, it's interesting. And the people who also realize and perhaps just came here to actually have a good time and whatever, and realize like, oh my god, like what the fuck is happening here? Like normalization of this like open relationships and all of this, like hamsters in a box. And I saw, because I'm socializing, like I say, I'm willing to hang out with no matter who. Like, because I would be just using that person, even if they're a dark piece of shit, just for the alchemy, just like for the call. I know that I will get something good out of this. This is why, but I have no respect for them. I know their intentions, and I know that their intentions are, and their will is being broken up, and they have to figure out the new way of figuring out of how to conduct themselves in a different world. But some of these men, I was talking with women from Europe. They would come here, and then they would just try to have a relationship with the guy, and it, and then I would talk to them because I know how these men function, and they would say to me, "It's like, oh, this is like what he's asking me to do," and it's like as if it's kind of normal and things like that. Like this open relationship thing. Hey, let's just be in a relationship, but I want to smash all the other girls too, like that type of approach. And these girls may be genuine. They may be, like have feelings for these guys, but these guys, they don't give a shit, man. They don't. They get off on the fact of having one woman sort of like draining her soul energy, right? And then having sex with the other, and this is exactly this dynamic that really drains people's energy, right? Because they have no fucking souls, man. They're dark. And so I would talk to them, and I would say to them, I would tell them the truth. I would say, listen, yeah, they're trying to normalize this thing, but you're not crazy, okay? This thing is still real. Having a normal relationship is still real. That is love based. It's still real, and enjoy the sex all you want, but it's based on love. This is still real. It's not going away. You just have to say no to this schmuck, and because they already hooked you in because of this trauma that you may have. Because the reason you kind of attached to this person is not because you love him, because he already betrayed you, but because now it's triggering your abandonment wounds and opening them up. And so the right thing is to just leave this type of guy, or just be on the friendly terms, and patch that thing up. Patch that thing up that was highlighted, but don't make it even deeper and deeper and deeper by engaging in this type of dynamic. I'm speaking from my experience. And so as soon as I just sniff any kind of like this other side where women do that too, right? And they want to have their quote unquote freedom, which is actually the most horrific fucking jail that you could be in. As soon as I sniff that, sayonara, motherfucker. Nope. Goodbye. I would rather have like, I don't know, 1 in 100, but genuine, than all these, and maybe that girl may not be like a 9 or a 10. She may be a 7, but I would rather be with the 7 who's real than fake ass 10, And then the fact is that, when that 7 is kind of starts glowing, because there is like a real genuine openness that is there, that is not for just like unselective with whatever man, but highly selective to the quality man, then when they start glowing, these 10s, they don't have chance. You understand? Like a glowing 7 has no chance against this lusty 10. It's just not gonna happen. Complete different energy. But lusty men will be afraid of her, will afraid of her, because she has that love, glow energy. And love is death to the ego. So they're just gonna be avoiding. It's quite interesting how to see. But the men, I should say, who are actually more together and they have their boundaries together, and then they do recognize that energy. And so there's these two worlds that they split. They split this like ego world and the soul world. And to me, it's like this ego world is sort of like a bonus level where you can just mine extra points to deepen your peaceful bliss even more. That's how I look at it. But there's something that needs to be done about that ritualistic magic. Now, because that's really, when they do that, it cuts deep. You understand? And then it kind of echoes into the lower levels, and then you end up having, like, perhaps on the lower level, a person just feeling very sad and lonely and just watching a video of somebody blowing smoke up their butt. That would be the consequence of, you see what I'm trying to say, the chain reaction. Not that I'm legitimizing that fact, because at any point on that scale of evil, because it's still evil, yeah, you see, because if you create art and you imbue your soul in the meaning, you contributed something and somebody else watching it, and if they have value, they can pay money, and that is legit. But this is completely different from a person who is just appeasing your emotions. You understand? They say the things that I'm trying to say, and you may say, well, they have good intentions. Okay, they have good intentions to help people, right? But when they get into and they start making this as a business, and they start relying this as their primary income, and thousands of people are now, attention is grabbed, and they're stuck into this dysfunctional addiction. Okay, they may not be drinking alcohol anymore, but now they just can't stop watching tarot readings or whatever, right? I'm just using examples, you see. I'm just really like picking on the tarot readers. It's only because the algorithm is freaking, when I watch this, they pop up, and I see, like, okay, I see they changed the tactics now. Now they're blowing smoke up there. So now it's like they're all like almost in cahoots of like, what is the best manipulation tactic works right now? Let's just do that, the true meaning of tarot, by the way, there is a true meaning of tarot, but it's not random. It's not the cards game. It is like you going through life, like this time fractals that I'm talking about. That is one particular, state of consciousness. It's like there's that challenge right there, because some of the tarot cards, like a major arcana, is showing you the structure of consciousness, and the minor arcana is showing you the stages of consciousness, and we're all going through them, but they work like a clockwork. It's not this fucking game. You see, you approach this particular time, and boom, you can use this card. This is the type of challenge I'm dealing right now. This is the type of a chemical challenge that I'm dealing right now. You see, you can use, but that is a correct and accurate way of using cards. But there's no business involved here. You just understand that you're going through the stages of life, and you're gonna feel that energy within yourself, that it can be represented by this card, that it represents the challenge, and then as you go through that, as you alchemize that energy, there's going to be that gem, that gold that you receive by overcoming this challenge. This is all talking about the soul level, nothing to do with the mind. Nothing to do with the mind yet. But when you take something that is real and then you make it into the mind game, it becomes toxic. See, like, it's not different from the religion. Okay? It is a type of minor necromancy, because they are reviving your wounds. By putting the sugar coating and saying like, oh, you're worthy, and you're going, oh, yeah, I'm worthy. Oh, wow, I'm worthy. Oh, yeah, they're saying that I'm worthy, so it must be worthy. I received that pleasure, that dopamine, whatever. And then the video is over, and then I'm not worthy again. What the fuck? They just reinforced that pain that was there by pouring pleasure on top of it. It's a minor necromancy. To me, like, the definition of necromancy is to reviving something that's already in the past and dead. You may have already been through that. You understand the freaking cost that you pay for that little bit of that type of pleasure? You might as well enjoy the pleasure that is genuine and real, like engaging with like a physical exercise, for example, and learning how to enjoy physical exercise. So you have the enjoyment and the pleasure, and you have all these endorphins that are being released and stuff like that, right? So you have, and the body will always wants to do something that is hard, and then it wants to do something that is easy. So lay on the couch is totally valid if you just been, squatting a hunter or whatever, right? Like, through there, you're going to receive that natural pleasure that is there. Or like receiving massage after like you've been busting your ass in the gym, maybe literally. It's a different type of experience. It's much more relaxing. So your body also wants to do like something tensing and something relaxing, something tensing, something relaxing. And this way is naturally you can have that pleasure that is healthy. You see? So external discipline. You have to say to yourself, like, no more. What am I doing? And then sometimes, like, I don't know how that's going to work, but I do have suspicion that, of course, there is this dark side of the CIA, and there's this light side of CIA, if you will, because it's just the people that are involved there. And when the coherence shift and the quality of consciousness shift, it is a different type of intent, right? It may be higher quality of intent. And I think that realization that the evil stems from portals in people who are involved in opening them and creating these types of, like, sacrificial ritualistic magic events. Because when they do that, they receive that pleasure, and the more pleasure they receive, that ecstatic pleasure received from that abominable thing that they do, the deeper the fragmentation they create. Okay? But they do that to gain something, because by having that temporary ecstatic pleasure, and they can manifest their intent through the egotistical, manifestation. This is why I'm so against ego-based manifestation. If you have your soul that is dark and going into this, like, oh, isn't it fun just manifesting more? Like, if you manifest anything from ego, you're contributing to this thing. And everything is maybe like nicely colored and everything, and it's like a nice music, and everyone's talking about, oh yeah, I manifested this. You see what I'm trying to say? Like, well, okay, not for long. Everything that you manifest from ego will be lost, and you won't be able to get away for it too long, because like I said, the general coherence of the planet is changing, and so all your ego manifestations will disappear. I can guarantee you. So I watch these people, like, anyway, forget about the people, but do consider that the deepening of fragmentation, which is how you feel, and therefore what kind of emotions you have, what kind of thoughts you have, is being determined by what people are doing in response to that everything's going on. And so logical response to this, internal alchemy, one side, external discipline, which means that the people who do these types of rituals must be identified and stopped and arrested or eliminated. Not just the people who are in charge of the system, but the people who are in charge of releasing these dark energies and doing this ritualistic magic. Now, of course, officially it is illegal. You cannot do sacrificial magic officially, right? But you gotta really do a stronger due diligence to identify these targets and eliminate them. And I can guarantee you, if you eliminate them, things are going to improve way faster, because you're gonna cut off the energy supply. It's already improving fast. Like I say, like the last 5 years, 50% decrease in homicide in Mexico. Massive improvement. Absolutely massive. But we can do better. More precision. Like seriously, like, first of all, you identify these parts of the world where the veil is thin and these ritualistic magic rituals has been done for like the last 2,000 years. And some people are doing this out of tradition, you understand? They don't know what they're doing. They may be sacrificing some chickens or some animals or whatever. They're not saying this. They're not publicizing this or whatever. And they use all sorts of, guinea pigs or whatever, and they sacrifice all sorts of animals. And sometimes people, because homicide is a type of sacrifice. War is a type of sacrifice. That animosity, that anger, that type of reason to fight each other to the death comes from a certain type of energy. Okay? And this is not kumbaya, this is not lovey-dovey, this is real. This is tangible and real. So the next step would be, which is right now, the step is to stop all the system controllers, which are, bosses and things like that. The next step would be these dark shamans. Like I said, some of them, they may not even know what they're doing. I think that there's a lot of people who just want to belong, and I'm just being real, guys, man. Like I've met these people, and some of them they're just gullible, and they're maybe like good people, but they want to belong, and they go into these groups and they do these little like rituals and dances and whatever, and something's wrong happens to them. There's something fucking wrong happens to them, and then I would stand next to them, whereas before they would be like um, happy and everything. They're blocked, and I can feel that numbness in their chest. It's like they belong into something dark, but they exchange their soul for belonging to that group that is vile. But they may look good. You see what I'm trying to say? But I can see through that. But they do this out of momentum. They're just not questioning why they're doing this. They're just doing it. Sometimes I would question, it's like, why are you doing this? Do you know the meaning behind this? Like, why are you doing this? They don't know. They're all just scared, afraid, doing this to belong, and they exchange their energy for that belonging. But what's happening within that ritual and the person who is in quote unquote in charge and what kind of energy they're holding, ugh. Their intent, because they know what they're doing, their intent is what's being manifested. Not the people that participate. They just use for the energy. They're just gullible fools. I'm telling you the truth. Like I've talked with people, and some people like they got out of this type of mess, and they told me, and women told me of like what kind of shit they went through, and I was like horrified to hear that, But at the same time, you know, I get that darkness. I get what's going on in the dark. No. So whatever it takes, that's the most important thing. If you take care of this, if you take care of the coherence of the planet, but again, it's the real coherence, not just an illusion of the coherence, but the real coherence. In the places where these pyramids were built, and you stop the people who do this necromantic thing, and you take away attention from the people who do this necromantic thing on a smaller scale, but perhaps they know what they're doing. They have that type of condescending attitude towards the people. They talk to people like they're a bunch of children. They're lullabying them. They know what they're doing. They use the tone of voice that is kind of, and these people are just gullible. It's just like, oh, maybe this is real. Maybe somebody cares about me. This person that don't know me at all and makes money out of me, maybe they actually mean what they say. No, they don't. No, they don't. No matter how nice they are, it's because they're not right next to you. They're not part of your life. And you're just sucking on the pacifier. There's no milk coming out. And you're just getting hungrier and hungrier. Okay, so that's what they wanted to say about the necromancy. Not in this occult to look kind of thing, but it's a very direct experience of you feeling that separation coming online. And it, like I said, it may be pain, pressure, poison, or confusion that is just seemingly seeping in. The question you're supposed to be asking, where did that energy come from? We're going to deal with it. We're not going to let that energy to just, do its thing like a bad smell in the air. We're going to freaking, like, at least I promise myself that, like, everything, they're taking the lowest rung. I'm always taking the lowest rung and taking the most disgusting and vile energy that is in the air, and I'm meeting that first. And if that is not online, then I can relax and, focus on these other layers. That to me is first. If it takes all my attention, I'll give all my attention. But then the second thing, if the alchemy is done, external discipline. And that's we have to ask the question, where is it coming from? Is it possible to reduce it? Is it possible to stop people from doing this thing? And does it change, like, if you actually do that? Also recognize that you yourself, for example, if you overdo something and you receive pleasure from some abominable idea, sexual idea, whatever, you're gonna split yourself again. You understand? And then you have to alchemize again. So you could engage in this necromancy yourself by just engaging in old habits and and stuff like that. Now, I'm not denying there is a natural layer of the pleasure that is there, but it's very different with this, like, a normal natural pleasure and this dark pleasure. You see? Because the need for this dark pleasure could be replaced by this redshift joy, where there's alignment within yourself and that energy is already here with you, and you don't have to do anything outside of you to get that energy. You don't have to do any kind of sacrificial rituals or whatever. You get that redshift energy directly from alchemizing it and streaming that energy into your body as ecstasy. You see? So you don't have to engage in necromancy to get that energy. You just have to pay your dues in consciousness calibration. And these people who skip that step and go, straight to their manifesting their desire, bring these black farts in the air, And again, every time they bring it, we're gonna clean it up. Every time they bring it, they're gonna clean it up. Now, there is always a limited, fragmentation. And you can get into that level of coherence, and the next day it can be fragmented again. And you can get in a level of coherence, and the next day it can be fragmented again. That appears to be happening. But there's something that it's almost like you can't go beyond that. Like, there's some level of stability that you got, and that's not gonna go away. But there's the rest of it, of like the more intense peace and bliss, it may just be there, and there's that separation, that numbness again that you have to alchemize. So, but again, what I'm trying to say here is, I feel like it is time for the external discipline as well. Like, I'm doing my personal discipline, right? And I know that these manifestations do not come through for them anymore. And I know that some people give up on doing that stuff. And I know that some people, they feel just too bad to do that stuff anymore. And other people, they realize that doing that stuff gives them short-term alleviation, and then it crashes them. And even if they manifest the thing that they really wanted, because they feel so shit, they can't even enjoy it. So people are learning. So just by doing alchemy, you do have an effect. But the external discipline is still necessary, just a little bit. Yesterday, there was some sort of date, astrological date, and they did the ritual, and I felt it when they were doing it at night. I felt that energy coming in. There's no other reason. There's nothing going on. The energy just shifted because they've opened the portals and they let some black farts in. But it's okay. I'm going to take them, alchemize them, put them back into coherence. But honestly, now they are weaker and weaker. Before, when they would do that, now I know that they were doing it. Or, okay, this is just a theory of mine, but like based on everything that I see, I'm just postulating and pointing my scientific mind in the reason of everything bad that's happening and people living in fear that it's way too much is because of these ritualistic traditions. You see? And I know that it's still a theory, but I would like to see what happens if they don't no longer happens anymore. And I would like to see if there's more people who are alchemizing energy and calibrating energy. I would like to see what happens. I know for a fact that calibrating energy does make an actual change, but I wonder if you stop the necromancing, wouldn't that accelerate even more? Meaning that the job that you do, you don't have to go back and redo it again. Okay? Because I understand sometimes like I would smoke too much weed and it's my fault. Okay, yeah, I dropped the ball. But I haven't been doing this in a while. And then for no reason it starts happening. And these old thoughts pop online. I was like, I haven't thought of this. It's like, why is this thought running here again? I'm like, I thought we're done with this thing. But there's little difference, whereas before it would be like very deep and really challenging. Now it's weaker. And it's really like not that big of a deal. Like I can walk in the park and handle that type of calibration. Whereas before I would be just taken out and I would just be, in agony, trying to deal with that without pacifying it. But now it's not the same anymore. It's becoming weaker, weaker, and weaker. So anyway, I'm just putting dots together without any kind of information from the past or the history, eliminating as much woo as possible, and just a good question to have. If you're calibrating the energy, you will know that indeed changes things, because just the way you feel, that's the way the people are interacting with you. Therefore, you already see how you can, for example, even see like if you feel like really calibrated and you go to one event and with the people, the whole vibe, everything is just wow, amazing, and people are friendly and you see, and then heaviness comes along, and then everybody's kind of more tight and whatever, and then see what I'm trying to say. I'm sure that that's what's going on. I can feel in the people's heart that type of tightness when that energy comes along. I know that some people like try to pacify and do some sort of nasty shit and whatever, but I'm just pointing at something that is a causal for the rest of it without going into the branches. What is the root cause? The real root cause. And the coherence or an incoherence is the real cause. And what facilitates the incoherence is the cause for incoherence. What facilitates coherence is the cause for coherence, right? Logical. And when I mean coherence, is the feeling, the ambient feeling that love and light. And when it's incoherence, you know what that means. So maybe calibrating energies is hard enough on this planet. So maybe those old traditions and that ritualistic magic supposed to be really looked in deeper and stopped. And not just to say like, oh, aren't they weird? And they kind of weird. They're doing this ritual. Can you believe this? It's like, hey, no, not they're weird. Not can you believe this? Fucking find them, lock them up, and don't let them out until you figure out what the fuck is wrong with these people. Whether they've just been sucked in through the gullibility, whether they're these core planners of it. And the moment you do this, you will even see the shift in the people who are in the controlling positions, because they're not going to be fed on that energy anymore. You got to block that energy and the causes for that incoherent energy, and the rest of it will fall into place. Or it will be much easier, because there's already an effort to curb that type of enthusiasm, you see. And I don't know. I know some people are occupied with this stuff like that is more like superficial and things like that, but let's start from this, and then the rest of it will be fine, and there will be worthy. This is why, to me, like, to focus on something that is really not gonna matter at all, given the fact that the level of incoherence, that it's all gonna be corrupted anyway. So you kind of see it, and it's like, okay, this is just waste of time. All that energy is supposed to be pointed out and eliminating the reasons of that. Also, conversely, whatever improves the coherence should also be considered. I mean, not even a person who is calibrating the energy, which is basically a person who's capable to changing the vibe in the entire room and whatever, right? And maybe affect much larger space than the room. And to some degree, because everything's connected, right? If you are vibrating on this bliss frequency, generally not sex-induced through some hallucination, you're affecting the rest of the field. And the darkest field is going to be perhaps a little bit more brighter. So you still have a change. And see what I'm trying to say? So what if you start looking at this technologically and start saying, like, is there a technology that could potentially take that energy, incoherent energy, and turn it into the coherent, right? Can you create like in quantum alchemical device? That's a good question, because they did it with the pyramids, but the pyramids were as a combination with the person and the device, which was a pyramid, and that's why it had like such a strong effect. That's the question supposed to be answered. I don't know if this now, perhaps there could be a technology could amplify that and work together with the person who's calibrating the energy, or it could be standalone. Now, the problem with standalone is that it would kind of undermine the reason of why some souls come here, and they come here for this very reason of to do the alchemy and contribute their energy to the system and improve the coherence of the system. Now, if you have the devices then you don't have to do that anymore, right? And perhaps at some point in the future, these soul alchemists will be obsolete because they'll be dependent on technological alchemists, if you will, the machine that can do that. I don't know if that's even possible. But if you can have any kind of device that amplifies the calibration capacity of a person or a soul, that should definitely be the thing. That should definitely be the thing. So this is where I'm at. Everybody is going to arrive to this point. I know a lot of people, like quite smart people, are investigating consciousness and doing sorts of DMT research and stuff like that. They will come up to, in the end, they will come to this conclusion and see like, oh, wait a second. It's the coherence field that is the causal reason of everything else. And then it will point attention not to nice colors and interesting phenomena in the astral, but they will point attention is like, we gotta get that coherence right. And how do we do this? Like, what kind of work do I do with my consciousness to contribute to that? And in my case, I mean, the most direct thing is to do one-on-one sessions with the people and show them how to calibrate the energy. That is a big impact because you have another human being who engaging his hero's journey like that, you know, and with real hero's journey. And they're saved from suffering because when you don't know how to calibrate the energies and those heavy energies come along, it's hell. So you got to learn how to do that. So the people who are suffering the most is the people that are supposed to learn how to calibrate the energies the most. So that's one thing that I can do. How to identify and stop the dark magic, ritualistic dark magic? That's a good question. I don't have the answer, but I have a few ideas. I think that would be also the order of business, and what to do with these people who pacifying everybody and doing this minor necromancy, and I don't know. Eventually they will go out of business, but the only way they will go out of business if I do my good work and I show that they don't have to depend on them. And this is the hard part for me to sort of go out there and be in a process of like reducing the circus. And you may say, well, that's easy, just go there and post this, talk to this person or whatever. Yes, this is your tangible steps that I have to do. But in order for me to do that, there has to be already a certain type of pathways that's already laid out energetically that I'm working on, because I'm essentially going against the very machinery with a lot of momentum and a lot of force that's going in the opposite direction. And so it's not easy to sort of like camouflage yourself and some cloak in and inject that code that is the opposite of the agenda. And but you gotta cloak yourself as it's not. Otherwise, you see what I'm trying to say? So there's something there that I have to do. And the biggest thing that I dislike is is to look like these people. You see what I'm trying to say? And I won't be able to avoid of, like, having a website and posting testimonials and things like that. But I'll do my best just to be as organic as possible and not to look like them. But I'm gonna have to do some things like what they do. Otherwise, how do you get people right now? Like, I used to be good at SEO, but right now SEO is so changed that, like, I don't know how to even do that anymore. Um, and everything is gatekeeping. Like, if you type in, like, um, cure for the anxiety, what you gonna have? Like, how do you cut through that bullshit and actually get the people to? You see what I'm trying to say? There's got to be a way. I'll find a way, but we'll find the way. All right, guys. Thanks for watching this little story about necromancy. Hopefully, it makes sense. And I'll see you in the next one.